Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Droning Professor. Tonight's lesson is about why we search the unknown. So as you make yourselves comfortable, please take a moment to let us know where you're listening from, and feel free to subscribe. Now, as always, take a moment for some deep breaths, letting your mind and body relax for a good night of sleep. Before we begin tonight's exploration into one of humanity's most fundamental drives, let me ask you a question that might seem simple at first. When was the last time you looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there? Now, I don't mean when you last checked your weather app, though I suppose that's a form of searching the unknown too, just with significantly less existential weight and considerably more accuracy than ancient augury. I mean, when did you last feel that profound sense of curiosity, that almost magnetic pull toward the mysteries that surround us? Tonight we're diving deep into a question that has puzzled philosophers, scientists, theologians, and probably every human who has ever stared into the darkness and wondered, what else is out there? We're exploring why humans have this seemingly insatiable drive to search the unknown, to pursue meaning in mystery, and to push beyond the comfortable boundaries of what we know. This isn't just an academic exercise. Understanding this drive helps us understand ourselves, our history, our future. Let's start with the basics. Why do humans have this drive at all? From an evolutionary perspective, curiosity isn't just a charming quirk. It's been a matter of life and death for our species. Consider our early ancestors on the African savanna. Those who wondered, what's beyond that hill? Or what happens if I combine these two plants? We're more likely to find new food sources, identify threats, and ultimately survive. Those who were content to sit by the fire and never explore, well, let's just say their genes didn't make it to the modern gene pool with quite the same frequency. But here's where it gets interesting. Human curiosity evolved far beyond mere survival needs. While other species show curiosity, watch a cat with a cardboard box for scientific proof, humans developed what psychologists call epistemic curiosity. This is the desire to know something simply for the sake of knowing it, even when that knowledge provides no immediate survival advantage. Think about it. What survival benefit did early humans gain from counting stars? From creating cave paintings? From wondering about the nature of death? Yet archaeological evidence shows us that humans have been engaging in these impractical pursuits for tens of thousands of years. The famous Lascaux cave paintings, created around 17,000 years ago, weren't instruction manuals or warning signs. They were expressions of curiosity about representation, meaning, and perhaps the mystery of consciousness itself. This suggests that our drive to search the unknown became so fundamental to human nature that it transcended pure survival function and became part of who we are at our core. We don't just seek the unknown because we have to, we seek it because we can't help ourselves. Modern psychology has identified several key mechanisms that drive our search for the unknown. Let's examine the primary psychological forces at work. Psychologist George Loewenstein proposed that curiosity arises when we perceive a gap between what we know and what we want to know. This gap creates a kind of cognitive tension, an itch that can only be scratched by acquiring new information. Think of it as intellectual hunger. The more we learn, the more we realize we don't know, which creates an ever-expanding appetite for knowledge. This explains why mystery novels are page-turners, why clickbait headlines work so effectively. Spoiler alert, you probably will, and it probably involves either a celebrity, a cat, or both. And why scientific discoveries often lead to more questions than answers. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We have an almost compulsive need to find connections, create narratives, and impose order on chaos. When faced with the unknown, we don't just want information, we want understanding. We want the information to fit into a meaningful framework. This is why conspiracy theories can be so appealing, even when they're demonstrably false. They provide a sense of order and meaning, even if that meaning is sinister. The human brain would rather have a wrong answer than no answer at all, which explains a lot about the internet, doesn't it? Research shows that humans have a fundamental need to feel in control of their environment. Yet paradoxically, we're also drawn to experiences that take us beyond our control, to mysteries, adventures, and unknowns that humble us and remind us of our limitations. This creates what I call the roller coaster paradox. We pay money to be terrified, seek out experiences that make us feel small and vulnerable, and are drawn to mysteries precisely because they remind us that we don't have all the answers. There's something psychologically satisfying about confronting the vastness of what we don't know. Throughout history, different cultures have developed unique approaches to the unknown, each reflecting their values, beliefs, and understanding of the world. The ancient Greeks gave us the word philosophy, literally love of wisdom, and with it, a systematic approach to exploring the unknown through reason and inquiry. Socrates famously declared that the only thing I know is that I know nothing, turning ignorance itself into a starting point for wisdom. The Greeks were perhaps the first culture to celebrate the unknown as something to be embraced rather than feared. They developed formal methods of inquiry, logical reasoning, and systematic observation. They asked fundamental questions that we're still grappling with today. What is the nature of reality? What is justice? What is the good life? But here's what's remarkable. They didn't expect to find final answers. The journey of inquiry was itself the goal. Aristotle wrote about the pleasure of learning, describing it as one of the fundamental human experiences. For the Greeks, the search for the unknown wasn't just intellectually valuable, it was emotionally and spiritually fulfilling. During the medieval period, particularly in Christian mysticism, the unknown took on a different character. The 14th century anonymous work, The Cloud of Unknowing, described God as fundamentally unknowable through conventional means, a mystery that could only be approached through love and contemplation, not through reason or knowledge. This represented a radically different approach to the unknown. Rather than seeking to illuminate mystery through investigation, medieval mystics sought to embrace mystery as a path to transcendence. The unknown wasn't a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. This mystical tradition influenced not just religious thought, but also early scientific inquiry. Many medieval scholars saw their investigation of the natural world as a form of worship, a way of approaching the divine mystery through understanding creation. The 15th and 16th centuries brought a more literal approach to searching the unknown. European explorers like Columbus, Magellan, and da Gama sought new lands, new routes, and new peoples. The unknown was geographical, tangible, and conquerable. But this period also reveals something troubling about how cultures can approach the unknown, the tendency to treat mystery as something to be dominated rather than respected. The age of exploration, while expanding human knowledge dramatically, also led to colonization, cultural destruction, and the treatment of unknown peoples as objects to be studied rather than subjects with their own valid ways of knowing. This historical lesson remains relevant today as we explore new frontiers in space, genetics, and artificial intelligence. How we approach the unknown reflects our values and has real consequences for others. Many indigenous cultures have developed sophisticated approaches to the unknown that differ significantly from Western traditions. Rather than seeking to eliminate mystery through explanation, many indigenous worldviews integrate mystery as a permanent and valuable aspect of existence. For example, many Native American traditions speak of the Great Mystery, not as a problem to be solved, but as the fundamental nature of existence itself. This doesn't represent ignorance or anti-intellectualism. Rather, it reflects a profound understanding that some aspects of reality may be permanently beyond human comprehension, and that this limitation is itself meaningful and valuable. These traditions often emphasize experiential knowledge over theoretical knowledge, seeing the search for the unknown as something that transforms the seeker rather than simply providing information. The unknown isn't just out there to be discovered. It's within us, around us, and part of the fabric of existence itself. The scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries represents perhaps the most systematic and successful approach to searching the unknown that humans have ever developed. but it's worth understanding both what made it so powerful and what it leaves out. Galileo, Newton, and their contemporaries didn't just ask better questions, they developed better methods for answering them. The scientific method provides a structured approach to curiosity. Observe, hypothesize, predict, test, revise. This systematic approach has allowed humans to push into realms of the unknown that would have been unimaginable to previous generations. Consider what we've learned just in the past few centuries: the true size and age of the universe, the microscopic world of bacteria and viruses, the structure of DNA, the reality of evolution, the existence of electromagnetic radiation beyond visible light. Each discovery has opened up new realms of unknown to explore. But here's what's particularly fascinating. The more successful science has become at answering questions, the more questions it has generated. Every solved mystery reveals new mysteries. We now know that the visible matter in the universe, everything we can see and directly detect, makes up less than 5% of what's actually out there. The rest is dark matter and dark energy, placeholder names for phenomena we know exist but don't understand at all. As scientific knowledge has exploded, it has necessarily become more specialized. Today's researchers often know incredible amounts about very narrow topics. This has led to remarkable advances, but also to a potential loss of the broader wonder that initially drives scientific curiosity. The unknown has become compartmentalized. Biologists explore biological unknowns, physicists explore physical unknowns, psychologists explore psychological unknowns. But many of the most profound mysteries, consciousness, the nature of time, the origin of life, the possibility of meaning in a physical universe, exist at the intersections between disciplines. This is why some of the most exciting contemporary science happens at these intersections. Biophysics, cognitive neuroscience, astrobiology, quantum psychology. The biggest unknowns often require us to cross traditional boundaries, to approach mystery from multiple angles simultaneously. For all its power, the scientific approach has certain inherent limitations in addressing the unknown. Science excels at questions that can be answered through observation, experimentation, and measurement. But what about questions that can't be approached this way? Consider consciousness, your direct, immediate experience of being you. Science can study the neural correlates of consciousness, can identify which brain areas are active when you're conscious, can even manipulate consciousness through various interventions. But the fundamental mystery, why there's something it's like to be you, why you have inner experience at all, remains as puzzling as ever. This isn't a failure of science. It's a recognition that some mysteries may require approaches beyond the scientific method. This brings us back to the importance of maintaining multiple ways of engaging with the unknown. Today we face a unique situation in human history. We have unprecedented access to information, yet we're also confronted with mysteries of unprecedented scale and complexity. Let's examine some of the major unknowns that define our contemporary landscape. Our understanding of the universe has expanded dramatically, yet so has our appreciation for cosmic mysteries. We now know that the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old, contains at least 100 billion galaxies, and is expanding at an accelerating rate. But this knowledge comes with profound unknowns. Dark matter makes up about 27% of the universe, yet we have no idea what it actually is. We know it's there because of its gravitational effects, but it doesn't interact with light or ordinary matter in ways we can detect. Imagine if 27% of your body was made of something you couldn't see, touch, or directly detect. That's essentially our situation with the universe. Dark energy is even more mysterious. It appears to be causing the expansion of the universe to accelerate, and it makes up about 68% of everything that exists. Yet we have no compelling theory about what it is, or why it works the way it does. Then there's the question of life elsewhere in the universe. The Drake equation suggests that there should be numerous intelligent civilizations in our galaxy alone, yet we've detected no clear evidence of any. This Fermi paradox, the apparent contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial life and our lack of contact with it, represents one of the most intriguing mysteries of our time. Quantum mechanics, one of the most successful theories in physics, is also one of the most mysterious. The quantum world operates according to principles that violate our everyday intuitions about reality. Particles can be in multiple states simultaneously, can influence each other instantaneously across vast distances, and seem to depend on observation for their very existence. Richard Feynman, one of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics, famously said, "Nobody understands quantum mechanics." This wasn't false modesty. It was an acknowledgement that quantum mechanics works remarkably well for making predictions, but doesn't provide an intuitive understanding of what reality is actually like at its most fundamental level. Recent developments in quantum computing and quantum information theory have only deepened these mysteries while opening up new practical applications. We're building technologies based on phenomena we don't fully understand, using mysteries to solve other mysteries. Perhaps no mystery is more immediate and personal than consciousness itself. Despite decades of neuroscientific research, we still don't understand how subjective experience arises from objective brain activity. This hard problem of consciousness, as philosopher David Chalmers termed it, remains as difficult today as it was when ancient philosophers first pondered it. We can map brain activity, identify neural networks, and even predict some aspects of conscious experience based on brain states. But the fundamental question remains, why is there inner experience at all? Why doesn't the brain just process information without generating the subjective, felt experience of being someone? This mystery has profound implications for questions about artificial intelligence, animal consciousness, and what it means to be human. As we develop more sophisticated AI systems, the question of whether they might become conscious and how we would know becomes increasingly pressing. We live in what's often called the information age, yet we face what might be called an information paradox. We have access to more information than any humans in history, yet many people report feeling more confused and uncertain than ever. Why? Part of the answer lies in the difference between information and understanding. Information is raw data. Understanding is processed, integrated, meaningful knowledge. The internet provides vast amounts of information but doesn't automatically provide the frameworks needed to turn that information into understanding. Moreover, the sheer volume of information available can be overwhelming. When every question can be answered with a Google search, what happens to the experience of living with productive uncertainty? When every mystery can be immediately solved by consulting Wikipedia, do we lose something important about the human experience of wonder? Living with unknowns, seeking them, wrestling with them, sometimes being defeated by them, has profound psychological effects, both positive and negative. Research in positive psychology has identified several benefits associated with intellectual curiosity and the willingness to engage with mystery. Enhanced creativity. Exposure to mysteries and unknowns stimulates creative thinking. When we don't have ready-made answers, we're forced to generate novel possibilities, to think outside established patterns. Studies show that people who score high on measures of curiosity also tend to be more creative across various domains. Increased psychological resilience. Learning to be comfortable with uncertainty appears to increase overall psychological resilience. People who can tolerate and even enjoy mystery tend to be better at handling stress, adapting to change, and recovering from setbacks. Greater life satisfaction. Somewhat counterintuitively, people who report having big questions and unsolved mysteries in their lives often report higher life satisfaction than those who feel they have everything figured out. The presence of meaningful unknowns provides a sense of purpose and direction. Enhanced social connection. Shared wonder and mystery can create powerful social bonds. Think about how people connect over shared curiosity about a movie plot, a scientific discovery, or a philosophical question. Mystery provides common ground for intellectual and emotional intimacy. However, our relationship with mystery isn't always positive. The same drive that leads to scientific discovery and philosophical insight can also create problems. Anxiety and existential dread. For some people, confronting the vastness of the unknown, particularly questions about death, meaning, and cosmic insignificance, can trigger severe anxiety. The existential philosophers wrote extensively about the anxiety of existence that comes from recognizing the fundamental uncertainties of human life. Conspiracy thinking. The discomfort with uncertainty can lead people to embrace false but psychologically satisfying explanations. Conspiracy theories often provide simple answers to complex mysteries, offering the illusion of understanding even when that understanding is factually wrong. Analysis paralysis. Some people become so fascinated by mysteries and possibilities that they struggle to make decisions or take action. When everything is uncertain, how do you choose what to do? This can lead to a kind of intellectual paralysis, nihilistic despair. For some, the recognition that many profound questions may never be answered can lead to a sense of meaninglessness. If we can't know the purpose of existence, does existence have purpose? This logical leap isn't necessary, but it's psychologically understandable. The key seems to be finding what researchers call optimal uncertainty, enough mystery to stimulate curiosity and growth, but not so much as to overwhelm and paralyze. This varies from person to person and changes over time. What feels like an exciting challenge to one person might feel like terrifying chaos to another. Developing a healthy relationship with mystery seems to involve several key skills. Tolerance for ambiguity. The ability to hold multiple possibilities in mind without immediately needing to choose between them. Intellectual humility. Recognition that our knowledge is always provisional and incomplete, coupled with openness to being wrong. Comfort with process over product. Finding satisfaction in the search itself, not just in finding answers. Balanced curiosity. Maintaining wonder while also being able to function practically in daily life. Throughout human history, the search for the unknown has been intimately connected with spiritual and religious experience. Even in our increasingly secular age, many people report that encountering profound mysteries, whether scientific, philosophical, or personal, evokes what can only be described as spiritual responses. Psychologist Rudolf Otto coined the term numinous to describe the feeling of encountering something mysteriously powerful, transcendent, and wholly other. This experience often accompanies encounters with profound unknowns, standing under a star-filled sky, contemplating the nature of consciousness, or confronting the mystery of existence itself. Interestingly, contemporary neuroscience has identified brain states associated with these experiences. Studies of meditation, prayer, and even psychedelic experiences show similar patterns of neural activity, a temporary quieting of the brain regions associated with the sense of self, coupled with increased activity in areas associated with connection and transcendence. This suggests that the search for unknown may actually trigger states of consciousness that feel inherently meaningful and valuable, regardless of whether they lead to practical knowledge. The journey itself transforms the traveler. There's often thought to be a conflict between scientific and spiritual approaches to mystery, but this may be a false dichotomy. Both approaches involve a fundamental stance of humility before the unknown, a recognition that reality is far more complex and wonderful than our everyday experience suggests. Einstein, hardly a traditional religious thinker, wrote extensively about the cosmic religious feeling that drove his scientific work. He described a sense of wonder at the orderliness and beauty of natural laws, a feeling that there was something profound and mysterious underlying physical reality. Many contemporary scientists report similar experiences. Astronauts frequently describe the overview effect, a cognitive shift toward greater environmental awareness and spiritual insight that occurs when seeing Earth from space. Biologists speak of the profound mystery of how life emerges from non-life. Physicists grapple with the fine-tuning of physical constants that allows for complexity and consciousness to exist. Perhaps the most profound unknown that humans face is the question of ultimate meaning. Is there a purpose to existence? Does the universe have inherent value? Do our individual lives matter in any cosmic sense? These questions can't be answered through scientific investigation alone, yet they're central to human experience. How we approach these mysteries, whether through religious faith, philosophical inquiry, artistic expression, or personal reflection, shapes how we live and what we value. Some people find meaning in religious or spiritual frameworks that provide answers to these questions. Others find meaning in the search itself, in the very human capacity to ask these questions even when answers aren't forthcoming. Still others find meaning in creating value through their actions, regardless of whether that value has cosmic significance. What's remarkable is that humans continue to ask these questions even when we suspect they may be unanswerable. This itself tells us something important about human nature. We are beings who create meaning through our engagement with mystery. As we look toward the future, what new unknowns await us? And how might our approaches to mystery itself evolve? Paradoxically, our increasingly sophisticated technology isn't eliminating mystery, it's revealing new layers of unknown. Artificial intelligence provides a perfect example. As AI systems become more powerful and complex, they also become more mysterious. We can build neural networks that recognize patterns or generate text, but we often can't explain exactly how they do it. This creates what researchers call algorithmic mystery, unknowns that are entirely human-created yet beyond human understanding. We're building systems that work in ways we don't fully comprehend, making decisions through processes we can't entirely trace. Virtual and augmented reality technologies are opening up new forms of experience that raise fundamental questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and identity. If we can create experiences indistinguishable from real reality, what does reality even mean? Genetic engineering technologies like CRISPR are giving us unprecedented power to modify life itself. Yet they also reveal how much we still don't understand about the complex systems we're modifying. Every advance in genetic medicine reveals new layers of biological mystery. For most of human history, the search for unknown was limited to a relatively small number of people with access to resources, education, and time. Today, that's changing. Citizen science projects allow anyone with internet access to contribute to research. Online databases provide access to information that was previously available only to specialists. But this democratization also raises new questions. How do we maintain quality control when everyone can participate in research? How do we distinguish between productive curiosity and mere speculation? How do we preserve the depth of expertise while opening up the breadth of participation? We may also be approaching fundamental limits to what humans can discover through our traditional methods. Some mysteries may be beyond our cognitive capacities, just as quantum mechanics is beyond the capacity of classical physics to explain. Consider the possibility that consciousness, cosmic purpose, or the nature of time might require forms of understanding that human brains simply aren't equipped to achieve. This doesn't mean we should stop searching, but it might mean we need to develop new approaches or accept certain permanent mysteries as part of the human condition. Alternatively, we might augment our natural capacities through technology, brain-computer interfaces, genetic enhancement, or artificial intelligence partnerships that allow us to explore realms of unknown currently beyond our reach. Perhaps most intriguingly, our capacity for wonder itself might evolve. Each generation grows up with mysteries that previous generations couldn't even imagine. Today's children will mature in a world where AI companionship is normal, where genetic modification is routine, where virtual experiences are indistinguishable from physical ones. How will this shape their relationship to mystery? Will they retain the sense of wonder that has driven human searching throughout history? Or will constant access to information and artificial answers diminish their tolerance for productive uncertainty? There's some evidence that young people today are developing new forms of curiosity, more comfortable with ambiguity, more skilled at navigating information overload, more willing to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. They may be evolving new capacities for engaging with mystery that older generations lack. Understanding why humans search the unknown isn't just an academic exercise. It has real implications for how we live, learn, work, and relate to others. Let me offer some practical insights based on what we've explored. Traditional education often focuses on providing answers, but our discussion suggests that learning how to engage productively with questions might be equally important. Students who learn to be comfortable with uncertainty, to ask good questions, and to pursue inquiries even when outcomes are unclear, may be better prepared for a rapidly changing world. This doesn't mean abandoning the teaching of established knowledge. Foundational facts and skills remain crucial, but it might mean balancing the presentation of answers with the cultivation of wonder, teaching students to see knowledge as provisional and evolving rather than fixed and final. Some educational approaches already embody this perspective: problem-based learning, inquiry-based science instruction, Socratic seminars that focus on questioning rather than answering. These methods recognize that the capacity to engage with unknowns may be as important as the ability to master knowns. In professional contexts, the ability to work productively with uncertainty is increasingly valuable. Whether you're an entrepreneur dealing with market unknowns, a researcher exploring new frontiers, or an artist creating novel works, success often depends on comfort with ambiguity and willingness to pursue paths with uncertain outcomes. Organizations that want to innovate need to cultivate cultures that reward intelligent risk-taking, that celebrate productive failures, and that maintain space for questions that don't have immediate practical answers. The companies that will thrive in coming decades may be those that best balance the efficiency of known processes with the generative power of unknown possibilities. On a personal level, maintaining some relationship to mystery and unknown may be essential for psychological health and continued growth. This might mean intellectual practices, regularly engaging with ideas, books, or experiences that challenge your current understanding, reading outside your field, taking up new hobbies, traveling to unfamiliar places, or simply setting aside time for open-ended reflection. Emotional practices, learning to sit with difficult emotions without immediately trying to fix or understand them. Recognizing that some aspects of human experience, love, grief, creativity, wonder, may never be fully explicable, but can still be deeply meaningful. Relational practices, approaching other people as mysteries to be engaged rather than problems to be solved. Maintaining curiosity about the inner lives of those close to you, recognizing that even people you know well contain depths you may never fully understand. Spiritual practices, whether through traditional religious frameworks or secular forms of contemplation, maintaining some practice that connects you with questions larger than your immediate concerns. At a societal level, our relationship to mystery and unknown has important ethical dimensions. How we approach what we don't know affects how we treat others, how we make collective decisions, and how we relate to the natural world. Humility in governance. Political leaders who acknowledge the limits of their knowledge and the uncertainty inherent in complex policy decisions may make better decisions than those who claim certainty where none exists. Scientific integrity. The scientific community's commitment to acknowledging uncertainty, reporting negative results, and remaining open to paradigm shifts serves as a model for intellectual honesty in other domains. Environmental stewardship. Our relationship to ecological systems we don't fully understand requires a precautionary approach that respects mystery rather than presuming mastery. Cross-cultural understanding. Recognizing that different cultures may have valuable approaches to mystery and unknown can help combat intellectual arrogance and promote genuine learning across differences. As we reach the end of our exploration today, let me leave you with a paradox that I hope captures something essential about the human search for unknown. The more we learn about why humans seek mystery and meaning, the more mysterious the human condition itself becomes. We've traced this drive from its evolutionary origins through its psychological mechanisms, from its historical manifestations to its contemporary expressions, from its spiritual dimensions to its practical applications. Yet the fundamental question remains: Why should beings like us, temporary arrangements of atoms in a vast and apparently indifferent universe, care so deeply about understanding and meaning? Perhaps that's exactly the point. The search for unknown isn't ultimately about finding final answers. It's about the search itself, about what the very act of seeking reveals about who we are and who we might become. Consider what we've discovered in our journey today. That curiosity is built into our evolutionary heritage, that wonder is psychologically beneficial, that mystery can be a source of both anxiety and transcendence, that different cultures have developed beautiful and varied approaches to the unknown, that science reveals new mysteries as fast as it solves old ones, that technology amplifies rather than eliminates fundamental questions about existence. But most importantly, we've seen that the human relationship to mystery is itself creative and generative. We don't just encounter unknowns, we create them. Every answer generates new questions. Every solution reveals new problems. Every discovery opens new frontiers. This might seem frustrating, like being trapped on a treadmill of eternal questioning, but I'd suggest it's actually profound cause for optimism. It means that human beings are not passive consumers of predetermined meanings, but active creators of significance. We participate in an ongoing cosmic conversation about the nature of existence itself. The search for unknown is ultimately the search for ourselves, for what it means to be conscious, curious, creative beings in a universe that somehow became aware of itself through us. When you look up at the night sky and wonder what's out there, you're participating in perhaps the most fundamentally human activity, the transformation of mystery into meaning through the very act of questioning. Your questions matter. Your curiosity is not just personal entertainment, it's part of the ongoing human project of understanding and meaning-making. Whether you become a scientist pushing back the frontiers of knowledge, an artist creating new forms of beauty, a philosopher exploring the nature of existence, or simply a thoughtful person trying to live well in an uncertain world, you're contributing to humanity's greatest collaborative endeavor, the search for meaning in mystery. So as you leave here tonight, I encourage you to cultivate your relationship with the unknown. Ask questions that don't have easy answers. Pursue interests that might lead nowhere practical. Allow yourself to be confused, puzzled, and uncertain. Read books that challenge your assumptions. Have conversations that leave you with more questions than answers. Remember that the greatest human achievements, scientific, artistic, philosophical, spiritual, have always emerged from engagement with mystery. The scientists who discovered the structure of DNA, the artists who created the most moving works of music and literature, the philosophers who asked the deepest questions about human existence, the spiritual teachers who pointed toward transcendent possibilities, all of them started with wonder, with questions, with willingness to venture into the unknown. The future belongs not to those who have all the answers, but to those who can ask the right questions. In a rapidly changing world filled with new technologies, emerging challenges, and unprecedented possibilities, your capacity to engage productively with uncertainty may be your most valuable asset. Finally, remember that you don't have to search alone. The human quest for understanding has always been collaborative. Share your questions, learn from others' perspectives. Build on previous discoveries while remaining open to entirely new possibilities. The search for unknown is both deeply personal and fundamentally communal. We discover who we are partly through discovering what we share with all other seekers. The unknown awaits. The mystery continues. The search goes on. And you, yes, you sitting there, possibly wondering if this lesson will ever end, you are part of this grand adventure. And in case you've enjoyed our evening talk so much and still might be awake, here is another educational video for you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Droning Professor. Tonight's lesson is about why we love getting lost in mazes. So, as you make yourselves comfortable, please take a moment to let us know where you're listening from, and feel free to subscribe. Now, as always, take a moment for some deep breaths, letting your mind and body relax for a good night of sleep. Before we begin tonight's exploration into the fascinating world of mazes and why humans seem to have an almost masochistic love affair with getting deliberately lost, I want you to think about this. When was the last time you voluntarily paid money to become confused, frustrated, and temporarily trapped? If you've ever been to a corn maze, hedge maze, or even played a maze video game, then congratulations, you've participated in one of humanity's oldest forms of recreational suffering. Tonight, we're going to unpack this peculiar human tendency to seek out spatial confusion for entertainment. We'll journey through ancient Crete, medieval cathedral floors, English gardens, and modern psychology labs to understand why the simple act of not knowing where we are can be so profoundly satisfying. And yes, we'll also discuss why some of you probably got a small thrill just thinking about being lost in a maze right now. Let's start with a fundamental question. What exactly is a maze? At its most basic level, a maze is a network of paths or passages designed to challenge navigation from a starting point to a goal. But that clinical definition misses the heart of what makes mazes so compelling. A maze is really a physical manifestation of a puzzle, a three-dimensional riddle that we solve with our feet rather than our minds, though, as we'll see, our minds are very much involved in the process. The word maze itself comes from the Middle English amaze, meaning to confuse or bewilder. This etymology is particularly telling because it suggests that the purpose of a maze has always been to create a state of bewilderment. We literally seek out amazement in its most literal sense. There's something beautifully ironic about the fact that we voluntarily subject ourselves to confusion and then feel accomplished when we escape it. The history of mazes stretches back over 4,000 years, beginning with what is perhaps the most famous maze in Western culture, the Labyrinth of Crete. According to Greek mythology, King Minos commissioned the master craftsman Daedalus to construct an elaborate labyrinth beneath his palace to contain the Minotaur, a creature that was half man, half bull. The hero Theseus eventually navigated this maze to slay the beast, aided by Ariadne's thread, giving us our first recorded instance of what we might call maze hacking. Now, it's worth noting that archaeologists have never found definitive evidence of this specific labyrinth, but the story reveals something important about how ancient cultures understood the psychological power of maze-like spaces. The labyrinth wasn't just a prison for a monster. It was a representation of the complexity and danger of the unknown. To enter a maze was to risk losing oneself, both literally and metaphorically. The distinction between a maze and a labyrinth is worth clarifying here, though the terms are often used interchangeably in casual conversation. Traditionally, a labyrinth has a single path that leads inevitably to the center. It's more about the journey than the challenge of finding the way. A maze, on the other hand, offers multiple paths, dead ends, and choices. Labyrinths are meditative. Mazes are puzzles. Both serve different psychological needs. But tonight we're focusing on the puzzle-solving satisfaction that comes from true mazes. Ancient civilizations created labyrinthine designs not just in physical spaces, but also in art, coins, and religious contexts. The Romans were particularly fond of mosaic labyrinths, often placing them in the homes of wealthy citizens. These weren't meant to be walked, but rather contemplated, a kind of visual meditation on the nature of paths and destinations. The psychological appeal was already evident. Humans found something deeply satisfying about tracing these complex patterns, even when they couldn't physically navigate them. During the medieval period, labyrinths found their way into Christian churches, most famously at Chartres Cathedral in France. The labyrinth there, built around 1200, was designed as a substitute for pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Penitents would crawl on their knees along the path, experiencing physical discomfort and spiritual contemplation simultaneously. This religious context reveals another layer of maze appeal, the idea that difficulty and confusion can be transformative experiences. Getting lost becomes a metaphor for spiritual seeking. But it was during the Renaissance and later periods that mazes as entertainment really flourished. European aristocrats began creating elaborate hedge mazes in their gardens, turning confusion into a leisure activity. The maze at Hampton Court Palace, planted around 1690, is still delighting and frustrating visitors today. These garden mazes represented a fascinating shift in human psychology. Confusion was no longer something to be endured for spiritual or practical reasons, but something to be enjoyed for its own sake. This brings us to a crucial question. Why do we find this enjoyable? What is it about being temporarily lost and confused that triggers pleasure rather than anxiety? The answer lies in several interconnected psychological phenomena that researchers have been studying for decades. First, let's talk about the concept of benevolent frustration. This is the idea that humans actually enjoy certain types of frustration when they occur in safe, controlled environments. A maze provides the perfect example of this. When you're lost in a hedge maze at a tourist attraction, you know several important things. You're safe, there's a way out, someone knows where you are, and the experience is temporary. This knowledge transforms what could be genuine distress into playful challenge. Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow states provides another lens through which to understand maze appeal. Flow occurs when we're engaged in an activity that perfectly balances challenge and skill level. A well-designed maze does exactly this. It's challenging enough to require focus and problem-solving, but not so difficult as to be overwhelming. The physical act of navigating, combined with the mental work of mapping and remembering, creates an ideal flow experience. The neurological basis of maze enjoyment is equally fascinating. When we navigate complex spatial environments, multiple brain regions activate simultaneously. The hippocampus, crucial for spatial memory and navigation, works overtime to create mental maps. The prefrontal cortex engages in planning and decision-making as we choose between different paths. The reward centers light up when we make progress or solve sections of the maze. Essentially, maze navigation creates a whole brain workout that many people find intrinsically satisfying. There's also the element of what psychologists call optimal anxiety. The Yerkes-Dodson law suggests that performance and satisfaction are highest when we experience moderate levels of stress or arousal. Too little, and we're bored. Too much, and we're overwhelmed. Mazes create just the right amount of anxiety, enough to keep us engaged and alert, but not enough to trigger genuine fight or flight responses. The social psychology of maze navigation adds another layer of complexity. Mazes are often experienced with others, creating opportunities for cooperation, competition, and shared problem-solving. There's something uniquely bonding about being lost together. Couples who navigate mazes together often report feeling closer afterward, having shared the vulnerability of confusion and the triumph of eventual success. The maze becomes a metaphor for working through life's challenges together. Children, in particular, seem drawn to maze-like environments. Playgrounds often incorporate maze-like elements, and children naturally create maze-like games in their play. This isn't accidental. Navigating complex spaces is crucial for cognitive development. Mazes help children develop spatial reasoning, problem-solving skills, and confidence in exploring unknown environments. The joy children experience in mazes reflects a fundamental learning drive that continues into adulthood. The design psychology of effective mazes is a sophisticated field in itself. Professional maze designers understand that the key to a satisfying maze isn't making it impossibly difficult, but creating a series of challenges that build confidence while maintaining engagement. The best mazes include what designers call relief moments, sections where progress is clear and navigation is temporarily easier. These moments prevent frustration from building to the point where the experience becomes unpleasant. Effective mazes also employ what's known as progressive disclosure. They reveal information gradually rather than overwhelming visitors with too many choices at once. A well-designed maze might start with simple binary choices and gradually introduce more complex decision points as visitors build confidence and spatial understanding. This mirrors good educational design, where complexity increases as competence develops. The visual design of mazes matters tremendously as well. Hedge mazes work partly because the uniform appearance of the hedges makes it difficult to use visual landmarks for navigation. You have to rely on spatial memory and systematic exploration. Corn mazes, popular in American agricultural areas, create a different experience because the organic, irregular growth patterns of corn create a more chaotic, natural feeling of confusion. Modern technology has created entirely new forms of maze experience. Video game mazes can incorporate elements impossible in physical spaces, changing layouts, multiple levels, impossible geometry, and fantastical environments. Games like Portal or the Stanley Parable use maze-like navigation as a storytelling device, where the act of finding your way becomes part of the narrative experience. These digital mazes can respond to player behavior in real time, creating personalized levels of challenge. Virtual reality has opened up even more possibilities for maze design. VR mazes can create experiences of impossible scale. Imagine navigating a maze the size of a city, or one that exists in zero gravity. These technologies allow designers to explore the psychological elements of maze navigation without the constraints of physical space or construction costs. The therapeutic applications of maze navigation are increasingly recognized by psychologists and occupational therapists. Maze-based exercises are used to help patients recovering from brain injuries rebuild spatial navigation skills. For elderly patients, regular navigation of simple mazes can help maintain cognitive function and spatial awareness. The controlled challenge of a maze provides a safe way to exercise cognitive abilities that might otherwise decline with age. Mazes also serve as excellent tools for studying human psychology and neuroscience. Researchers can observe decision-making processes in real time as participants navigate maze environments. How do people choose between paths when all options appear equally valid? How do they form and update mental maps as they explore? How does stress affect navigation strategies? Mazes provide a controlled environment for investigating these fundamental questions about human cognition. The cultural significance of mazes extends far beyond entertainment and research. In many cultures, maze-like patterns represent life's journey, with its unexpected turns, dead ends, and eventual progress toward understanding or enlightenment. The idea that confusion and difficulty are part of meaningful experience resonates across human cultures. We see this in everything from Native American medicine wheels to Celtic knot patterns to the intricate geometric mazes of Islamic art. There's something profound about the fact that humans have been creating and enjoying mazes for thousands of years. This isn't a modern phenomenon driven by boredom or technological entertainment. It's a fundamental human impulse that transcends cultural and historical boundaries. We seem to have an innate appreciation for the experience of controlled confusion and methodical problem solving. The seasonal popularity of corn mazes in agricultural areas reveals interesting patterns about how we relate to natural cycles and community experiences. These mazes typically appear in autumn, coinciding with harvest time and Halloween traditions. There's something particularly satisfying about navigating a maze carved from crops that will soon be harvested. It creates a sense of temporary experience, of catching something in its brief moment of existence. The economic impact of recreational mazes is more significant than many people realize. Maze attractions generate millions of dollars in tourism revenue annually. Hampton Court Palace's maze alone attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. Corn maze operations have become important supplemental income sources for farming communities, turning agricultural land into temporary entertainment venues. The fact that people will pay money to become temporarily lost and confused demonstrates the genuine value humans place on this experience. But perhaps the most interesting aspect of maze psychology is how it reflects our relationship with uncertainty and control. In our daily lives, we generally try to minimize confusion and uncertainty. We use GPS navigation to avoid getting lost. We plan our routes carefully, and we prefer predictable environments. Yet in the context of a maze, we actively seek out the very experiences we normally try to avoid. This suggests something important about human psychology. We need controlled doses of uncertainty to feel fully engaged and alive. The maze experience also provides a rare opportunity to practice problem-solving skills in a low-stakes environment. Unlike real-world problems, which often have unclear solutions or significant consequences for failure, maze navigation offers clear success criteria and minimal risk. This allows us to experiment with different problem-solving strategies, build confidence in our abilities, and experience the satisfaction of overcoming challenges through persistence and systematic thinking. There's also an element of temporal suspension in maze navigation that many people find appealing. When you're truly engaged in solving a maze, normal concerns about time and outside responsibilities tend to fade away. You become completely present in the immediate challenge of navigation. This kind of focused attention is increasingly rare in our distracted, multitasking modern world. Mazes offer a form of meditation through spatial problem solving. The social dynamics of group maze navigation reveal fascinating patterns about human cooperation and competition. Some people naturally take leadership roles, trying to organize group strategy and coordinate movement. Others prefer to follow, trusting in the group's collective navigation ability. Still others become lone wolves, striking out on their own to find alternative routes. These patterns often mirror the roles people play in other group problem-solving situations, making mazes useful tools for team-building exercises and leadership development programs. The frustration tolerance developed through maze navigation can transfer to other areas of life. Learning to persist through confusion, to try multiple approaches when initial strategies fail, and to maintain optimism in the face of apparent dead ends are valuable life skills. The maze provides a safe place to practice these psychological muscles, building resilience that can serve us well in more consequential situations. Modern psychological research has identified several factors that make maze experiences particularly satisfying. The concept of agency is crucial. We need to feel that our choices matter and that we have control over our progress. A maze that feels arbitrary or unsolvable violates this need for agency and becomes frustrating rather than engaging. The best mazes create a sense that every choice is meaningful and that success is possible through intelligent navigation. The role of surprise in maze design cannot be understated. Effective mazes incorporate unexpected elements, sudden openings, hidden shortcuts, clever visual tricks, or surprising destinations. These surprises create moments of delight that punctuate the steady work of navigation. They also serve to maintain engagement by preventing the experience from becoming too predictable or mechanical. Environmental psychology research shows that maze navigation activates our deepest spatial processing abilities, which evolved over millions of years to help our ancestors survive in complex natural environments. The satisfaction we feel when successfully navigating a maze may tap into ancient reward systems that once motivated crucial survival behaviors like finding food, water, and shelter while avoiding predators and other dangers. The therapeutic value of maze experiences extends beyond cognitive rehabilitation. Many people find that maze navigation serves as a form of stress relief, providing a constructive outlet for anxiety and a sense of accomplishment that can boost mood and self-confidence. The physical activity involved in walking through mazes also provides gentle exercise that can contribute to overall well-being. Seasonal and temporary mazes, like corn mazes or ice mazes, add an element of urgency and specialness to the experience. Knowing that the maze won't be there forever creates a sense of occasion and can intensify the experience. This temporal limitation also means that word of mouth and memory become important parts of the maze's identity. You can't just Google the solution or return easily to master it completely. The photography and social media aspects of modern maze experiences have created new layers of engagement. People enjoy documenting their maze adventures, sharing photos from elevated viewpoints, or celebrating their eventual success. This social sharing extends the pleasure of the maze experience beyond the actual navigation, creating lasting memories and social connections around the shared challenge. The design challenges involved in creating effective mazes have led to sophisticated understanding of spatial psychology and human navigation behavior. Maze designers must balance complexity with solvability, ensuring that the experience is challenging enough to be engaging, but not so difficult that visitors become genuinely distressed or give up entirely. This requires deep understanding of human spatial cognition and problem-solving behavior. The educational applications of mazes extend far beyond simple entertainment. Teachers use maze activities to help students develop logical thinking, systematic problem-solving approaches, and persistence in the face of challenges. Mathematics educators particularly appreciate how mazes can make abstract concepts about paths, networks, and optimization concrete and engaging. The therapeutic applications for individuals with anxiety disorders are particularly promising. Maze navigation provides a controlled way to practice managing uncertainty and building confidence in one's ability to work through confusing situations. The clear goal and eventual success of maze navigation can help individuals develop more positive associations with unfamiliar or challenging environments. As we look toward the future of maze design and experience, technology will undoubtedly play an increasing role. Augmented reality mazes could overlay digital challenges onto physical spaces, creating hybrid experiences that blend real-world navigation with virtual elements. Artificial intelligence could create personalized mazes that adapt to individual skill levels and preferences, ensuring optimal challenge levels for each participant. But perhaps the most important insight about why people love getting lost in mazes is this. In an age of increasing predictability and digital mediation, mazes offer something precious: the opportunity to be genuinely surprised, genuinely challenged, and genuinely present in a physical experience. They remind us that confusion doesn't have to be negative, that getting lost can be the first step toward finding something wonderful, and that some of life's greatest satisfactions come from persisting through uncertainty toward a clear goal. The next time you find yourself at the entrance to a maze, whether it's carved from corn stalks, grown from hedges, or constructed from digital pixels, remember that you're about to participate in one of humanity's oldest forms of structured play. You're going to deliberately confuse yourself for the sheer joy of finding your way out again. And in that act of voluntary bewilderment, you'll be connecting with thousands of years of human experience, tapping into deep psychological needs, and proving once again that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to get completely lost first. The appeal of mazes ultimately reflects something fundamental about human nature: our love of challenges that we can overcome, our desire for experiences that fully engage our capabilities, and our need for play that serves no purpose other than the joy of the activity itself. In a world that often feels overwhelming and uncontrollable, mazes offer the perfect antidote: confusion that we choose, challenges that we can meet, and destinations that we can ultimately reach through our own efforts and ingenuity. And in case you've enjoyed our evening talk so much and still might be awake, here is another educational video for you.